Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Go From The Beginning. This time we'll talk about loops. We're starting here as usual with our package main, we have our func main, and we are looking to use loops. How does that work? You want to use a loop if you want to run a statement more than one time. So here we've set up a for loop. What it does is to go through your code 10 times. It's going to start on the value 0. It will stop on the value 9 because it's less than 10. And then it will increment itself for every loop. Just going to add a print line statement so you can see how that would work. We will add the %d for digit and then our I. There. Now we have our statement. Let's try to run that. And now you can see how all the values from 0 to 9 is being printed one after the other. So yeah, the for loop has 3 different constructs that you need to know about. One is the initial phase. We create the variable I, we set it to 0. We have an evaluation statement. If this one fails, if this one is false, then it will break the loop. And this is the incrementation stage where it says how much do I want to increase in one go. This could also be any arbitrary values like so. So we could increment it with 2 steps at a time. Let's run that so you see the difference. Now you see that it's outprinting a lot less numbers because it's increasing the value of I by 2 for each loop. It's also possible to author this loop a little bit differently. We can do like so. But in this case, we assume that the variable I exists since before. We're doing that. We're creating our value I for usage, and then we have only the evaluation statement. So if you look at this top for loop, you see that we have 3 stages. Here we only have the evaluation stage. In some languages, when you do it like this, it's called a while loop. But in Go, you don't have a while loop, but you have a very similar construct. The idea is to only have an expression that if it's true, it keeps on looping. If it's not true, then stop. Like before, we will borrow this construct and print this out. And we will also, as you can see, have the incrementation stage within the for loop itself. Now, if we do that like that, this works exactly like the one above. So if this is how you mean to do things, I do recommend to go with this for loop instead of this. So why am I showing this? Now in this code, I know you haven't seen this before in any of the previous videos, but this is a more realistic example where you would use the for construct with only the evaluation bit. What we're doing here is to declare a Boolean variable set to true to keep going, and what we have it do is to accept a command, and then we use a scan method to record whatever the user types. If they type quit, then we will break the loop. If they type something else, we will keep on going. Now to show you how this one works, let's try to run our code. I type hi, hello, it will keep going. So the whole loop here keeps going because I haven't typed quit. So if I type quit, it will actually exit the loop because at this point, keep going is set to false. That means next time it evaluates the value, it will break from the for loop. It's also possible to iterate over a more complex structure like a list. So here we have an array. We can see that we have an array because of this square bracket, and here where we initialize it to have 3 different arguments. What we use here is a range method. So range is applied to our array, and from the array we can then break out the index that we're currently on and the item itself. Let's just run this code so you see how that would work. So here you see that we are on index 0, that's the first position, index 1, index 2, and so on. So one thing I didn't mention in the beginning that I should mention is that all indexes should by custom start on the value 0 and not 1. So that's a good principle to know about. But as you see, if you have a list or an array, use the range method to be able to break it down into an integer and the item itself. You don't have to care about the integer if you don't want to, in which case you can just type that, but then you would have to remove it from here, right? So yeah, that's another alternative of doing looping. I also want to show you how you could be Okay, we're back to this classical version of the for loop where we create this variable, set a value, and we work with the evaluation expression, and lastly with an incrementation expression. What we're doing for this example is to showcase two keywords of importance. One of them is break. This will break the loop completely where it stands, and the continue, and this is more like a skip. This is not breaking the loop, but rather saying, okay, let's go for the next loop. I'm just going to ignore this value. We have 4 items in our array. What we're trying to do here, let's just go through each and every value, and you can see how that would run. You see that the values 2 and 1 is printed only. Why is that? Well, if we look at the value 2, we see that this one will be falsy. We also see that this one will be falsy, and we end up printing the value, so that's good. Now for the value 3 though, this one will be false because the value is bigger than 0, but this one will be true because the value is bigger than 2, so we end up hitting continue. At that point it's just skipping this print and going for the next value. Now for this value, neither this or this one will be true, which ends up with us printing the 1, as we can see below. And for the last value, the -1, we can see how that's less than 0, which will cause a break in the loop. So yeah, that's how the keywords break and continue works. Definitely use those as part of your for loop expressions to control the behavior of the loop. If you like my work, please subscribe to this channel, and I will take that as a signal of creating more content like that. Thank you so much for listening.